few seconds more. Okay, now we are on officially. So hello again, nice to see you. And we will start our webinar about critical thinking according to our invitation. So let's begin. Kasia, so I will, for this moment, I will start the presentation, and then when it will be your part, I will give you the control, okay?
All right, thank you. So yeah, we're starting with introduction. So my name is Katarzyna Kret, and I've been an English lecturer and teacher for 16 years now. I started my work at the ordinary system school, right? But then moved to more alternative kinds of education, and I was a co-founder of one of alternative schools. I am a certified critical thinking trainer. So this is the journey I started 2 years ago. And now I'm also a director of Critical Thinking Institute, which is the center for developing teachers, yes, and enriching their workshops and giving new tools. And I have also recently started my journey with neurolinguistics, and I'm a neurolinguistic coach. So this is about me.
Thank you. And me, I will start that I am not an English teacher, and I'm sure that you can hear it from my voice, from my accent. So I'm not a teacher, not English teacher. I'm the person from the business, let's say, background, but for last 18 years, I am in the education, and my work is that I started to bring to Poland innovative programs for education. I'm not connected with the system of the schools, but I am very passionate about education. This is my passion and my work, and I'm dealing with critical thinking for almost 15 years. I am director of TOC for Poland. TOC for Education, this is the foundation from the United States, and they created almost 40 years ago critical thinking tools, and I'm representative of this foundation in Poland for almost 15 years. And I already trained around 10,000 people in Poland with critical thinking tools. And I was also creator of alternative school in Poland, which was first in Poland based totally on critical thinking. And now I also, let's say 18 months ago, I started my own project, implementation of critical thinking in the Polish schools. And it's like 4 years program. And for this moment, we have already almost 100 schools all over Poland. So critical thinking is my area of expertise and still passion. And I'm happy today, we are both with Kasia, happy to share with you our experience and what we do, and hopefully it will be interesting for you. Our presentation, our webinar is like devoted for 2 parts. In the first part, I will show you very, very briefly, because we do it in much deeper level during the trainings, but I will show you briefly, just you will have the big picture, what we mean by critical thinking and what we develop, what we use also. And then Kasia will show you her experience from her work every day in the school and trainings, etc. And at the end, we will come back with summary and some kind of invitation for you to start the journey with critical thinking. Okay. So what skills do we develop and which methods do we use? For our work, and it's not about school as a system, what we were dealing with Kasia and with the network of almost 200 trainers all over Poland is that we want to develop 4 C's, which I'm sure you are familiar: critical thinking, collaboration, communication, creativity, in all aspects of our everyday life. It is in education, but it's also with parents and with individual work, with teamwork, with the business. Whatever we do the trainings, we want to develop 4 C's. The most important for us is critical thinking. So there are many definitions what is critical thinking. This is, let's say, my definition, and I will not read it just to save time, but please check all these, let's say, skills which create, let's say, critical thinking. Why I am showing you this map is that whatever whatever exercises, activities, lessons, lectures, whatever we do with our, let's say, clients, we always have it as a foundation. This is what we want to develop. One of these or all of these skills which create critical thinking. This is for us foundation of our work. This is always our goal to develop with our clients. How we develop this? We develop through critical thinking routines and tools. The most, let's say, common for us and used every day, and especially at the beginning with the beginners, if in terms of beginners in this area, we use thinking routines, which are created and used and, let's say, still developed by Harvard University and special Project Zero. This Project Zero, it's almost 50 years of research about thinking and how thinking can be developed in the schools, in the education, and how, let's say, critical thinking could be developed despite of the time, despite of the culture. It's universal. Everybody can learn critical thinking. We always say it's never too early and it's never too late for critical thinking. So this is what we use, and Kasia in the few minutes will show you the, let's say, examples of the thinking routines, how can be used during the English lesson. We also use critical thinking tools from TOC, which I already mentioned. This is like 3 tools, and they are working on the much deeper level to analyze problem and, let's say, hopefully to solve the problem. Kasia will show you 2 examples of these tools. We also use Bloom taxonomy, especially questions which are on each level, just to, let's say, develop and make deeper thinking, and questions which are, let's say, connected with, or let's say, created around Bloom's taxonomy. They're very helpful in everyday life and everyday, let's say, work, everyday lesson, just to go deeper, deeper, deeper. So this is what we use and tools to develop critical thinking. And one more thing which I want to emphasize at the beginning is that we want to show you some kind of different approach, different culture which we develop during our work. In the traditional approach to the learning, there is the common belief, let's say, assumption that the learning is the, let's say, effect of memorization. Though, if the memorization, let's say, influence learning, then the teacher focusing on exercises that facilitate memorization, correctness of perfect reconstruction, and the teacher's responsibility is to teach. And this is, let's say, traditional approach every day, everywhere when we look at the education. But the Harvard's University and the Project Zero approach is slightly different, but create completely different culture. They said the learning is the effect of thinking. If so, then what we have to, as adults and educators, we have to create. We cannot teach nothing anybody. What we can do, and we are responsible for this, is creating the stimulating environment when there are present the thinking routines, questions, challenges, and the teacher's role is moderator, coach of the whole process, and the responsibility of learning is on students' shoulder. This is, let's say, seems to be slightly different, but it creates completely different culture, completely different process, and of course, completely different results. And now I will give the voice to the Kasia, and she will show you practical way how you can use this, let's say, approach in the everyday life using special, let's say, design tools.
Thank you, Matej. Right, since
we will just information to you, all of you. I will disappear and I will be like responsible for the chat. So if you have any questions, any doubts, any ideas which comes up already or in the next 20-30 minutes, please, let's say, type in the chat room and I will try to answer as much as possible. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, since it's quite impossible to experience how the routines work during the webinar, I will try to describe the effect I managed to achieve with my students. And I will show you in the next slides, I will show you my lesson, which was 90-minute lesson. And I will try to show you the steps and effects of each step, right? So we started the lesson with showing the slide with conformity, right? And this picture, the same what you can see right now, okay? So the first task for my students was to work with this routine. This routine is called bridge number 1. And they were supposed to give 3 thoughts or ideas that come to their mind when they hear the word conformity or when they look at this picture. Then in next column to write 2 questions which come to their mind. And next option was to give the analogy or the metaphor for the word conformity. This part with metaphor is usually the most difficult one, but students come with these ideas quite naturally later on. I will show you. Okay, so we've got those, let's say, first connotations with conformity, right? So society, public opinion, idol, right? Questions. One person impacts another, right? Can false information affect me? And analogy here is conformity is like an accident because you never know when it will meet you, when it happens. So this is what one of my students created. And this was the individual work. So all of them created their own answers for this task, right? For bridge number 1. And I used this bridge number 1 to, first of all, to check students' knowledge in the topic of conformity, to check if they know anything, and to see how they understand the topic, what connotations do they have, what their previous knowledge, right? So just to know what I'm dealing with and to identify their emotions because, you know, those metaphors usually show what's their attitude towards the topic. Okay, so that was bridge 1. And then we moved to another routine, which was done step by step. It's called Connect, Extend and Challenge. So the first step was to connect to the reality, right? So they were supposed to tell me how they see conformity in the reality in their lives. And the next part was to move to the recording. It was a short part of a film, That But Society. That was this part when Professor Keating told boys to have a stroll, walk around the schoolyard, and he then decided to explain what conformity is and show them that they are really conformists, and also present them how to avoid this conformity in our life. And he also gave this quotation of Robert Frost. Probably most of you know this scene because it's quite popular. So my students watched only 2 minutes of this video. And after that, my aim and their activity was to extend their knowledge. So they were supposed to say what new knowledge came to them from the video and how they deepened their understanding of the topic, right? So as we can see, what appeared here, that put society, right, definition of conformity, linking manipulation as a reason of conformity, right? So that was this extended understanding of conformity for them. And next part was just discussion, right? So challenge. I wanted them to think what else wonders them. What are the questions and inquiries about conformity, right? So here we've got the examples. Is it bad to follow the group, right? Am I always influenced by the society? So are there any good forms of conformity? So these were their questions. And we had quite a long and vivid discussion on that, because since each student was doing it on their own, they had really millions of questions, and rhetorical ones and some philosophical ones, since they were matura students, so their thinking was really deep, right? So this Connect Extend challenge, this routine, was for finding the relation between the topic and their reality, right? Their real life. And to find connections between their reality and the video they watched. So there were a lot of political, religious, and other social matters touched by my students. So they managed to deepen their understanding of the topic. And this routine really encouraged them to ask questions and wonder more. And with each question created by the student, another questions appeared, right? So they were questioning each other, and they were finding further inquiries, puzzles and challenges, and also stating those rhetorical questions, as I mentioned, the ones that, you know, it's quite impossible to answer, but it's good to think about. Next step was to perform bridge number 2. So I again asked my students to look at conformity right now, after the whole discussion, after performing this Connect, Extend and Challenge routine, to answer the same questions, right? So they were supposed to give again 3 thoughts or ideas that come to their mind right now after this whole process. Write 2 questions which still come to their mind about conformity, and to write an analogy again, right? So yes, the first bridge is here, right? And the second bridge is beneath, right? And we can see that in the first column, this understanding is much deeper, yes? Because in bridge number 1, there was society, public opinion, and idol. And here in the second bridge, we've got influence, manipulation, following. So it shows that the thinking and understanding deepened. And in 2, we've got questioning, am I a conformist, right? So they started thinking about their attitude and their being or not being conformist, analyzing their life more. And can I make someone conformist, right? So that these are the questions of one of my students. And here it appeared that stating an analogy was quite a challenge right now for this student, right? But there were a lot of different and quite deep metaphors given. Okay, and this bridge 2, yes, was done to check if and how our students' understanding of the topic has changed. Right? So when we ask them to write it, then they can easily see the differences, right? And we can also ask them to state the differences if they can see how their thinking has changed. And we can see if it became deeper, and is it from another or maybe completely different perspective. And very often it is the case that it changes completely. Okay, then we moved to the conflict. The conflict was to be a conformist or to not to be the conformist, right? And here I used TOC tool, Cloud. Okay, this is what it looks like. So first we have to state the conflict, right? So what do we want? I want to be a conformist. I don't want to be a conformist. Then we're moving to needs. So our aim, our students' aim, is to state, to focus on the needs of each of the side of the conflict, right? And later on, we usually come up with a solution. But here, for me, the most important thing was to really understand the needs, right? So my students came with different ideas here, right? So for conformist, they stated the needs like no conflicts, right? It's easier to be conformist, it's safe. It is for acceptance, comfort, belonging, peace. And we've got more supportive people when we are conformists, and life is simple. So these were their ideas. And on the other hand, they had to state also the second part, so the needs of non-conformist, right? When they don't want to be a conformist, they take the responsibility for themselves. They get fulfillment. They are independent. They get self-acceptance, truth, right? Self-expression, creativity. So you can see a lot of ideas, right? So what I used it for was mainly to, of course, identify the needs of a conformist and non-conformist, and to help my students understand the drives that stand behind those people and their behavior, right? So to understand the reasons of their behavior. And it was also a great occasion while presenting, yes, because first my students had to prepare in pairs. They were working in pairs. They had to prepare this diagram and state all the needs. And after that, they were presenting it. And after the presentation of all groups, there was this space for a discussion. And this was this nice discussion because it was in a safe environment, because we were not engaged in the conflict. We were looking at the conflict from the observer's point of view. So the discussion was quite heated, but there was no case of convincing each other, right? It's better to be this one or this one. We were just having this overview of all the needs and drives behind those behaviors, right? Later on, when we stated all the needs and we knew why conformists and non-conformists behave the way they do, we went to COC tool branch this time, and our topic for that was to say if I were a conformist, right, what would I do? And the situation we were talking about was immigrants in Poland, right? So quite vivid social discussion right now. And they chose this topic on their own, and they wanted to create a branch on this topic, right? So what we came up with is this branch. And we were doing it together. I was writing on the board, and they were giving their ideas, right? So let's have a look at this branch. We go from the bottom, right? So if I were a conformist and listened to mainstream Polish politicians, I would think that immigrants are our enemies and are extremely dangerous. If I thought that immigrants are our enemies and are extremely dangerous, I wouldn't want them in my country. If I didn't want them in my country, I wouldn't let them cross our borders. If I didn't let them cross our borders, I would build stronger and taller walls, and I would get involved myself in that. If I built stronger and taller walls, I would find myself a hero and patriot. Okay, this is the way I would perceive myself. If I found myself a hero and patriot, I would repeat the well-working pattern. So what we used it for was to understand causal connections of nonconformist behavior. So to understand it deeper, right, and to see the effects of nonconformist behavior, and to get this deeper understanding of the social problem, right? We were also focusing on this specific problem, and again, it caused a lot of discussion, talking, giving opinions. So it was a very fruitful process, I would say. Okay, so what effects have I achieved during this classes, right? It was deep understanding of the topic. So as I said already, a lot of questioning, a lot of thoughts, ideas, rhetorical questions, philosophical deliberations, right? So they really got engaged, and they had their place to be heard, right? We had also a very nice reflection on teenagers' lives. So connections to real world, politics, religion, social matters. So all the stuff that teenagers are interested in, but do not really have the possibility to discuss and to talk about. Then understanding the needs behind conformist, non-conformist behavior. So that was the cloud. Understanding causal connections, consequences of non-conformist behavior. So that was branch. Great data gathered, right? So all the thoughts, which I used for writing an argumentative essay. Conformity, the best idea for easy life or for person's description, right? Conformist or non-conformist. So most of my students, after this heated discussion, decided to write this essay. And I have recently checked it and gave it back to them. And what I heard from them was that it was extremely fun to write an essay. So how often do you hear from your students that it's extremely fun? And it was a great pleasure to hear that, because, you know, they had all the thoughts organized. They came up with a whole plan for that, and with full understanding. So just putting it in precisely written essay was pleasure for them, right? And it was pleasure for me to read, because it was really well organized, yes, and the the thoughts were, you know, they were really specific. So there wasn't anything like writing a lot of words without any meaning, yeah? Just precise and specific sentences. And what we also managed to do was, of course, revising second conditional. And it was during the branch, right? So next was a lot of speaking. And here we've got stating opinions, defending opinions, agreeing, disagreeing, raising questions. So all those skills which we want to develop in our students, right? Okay. When we look at the slide, all those skills in red or activities in red are those who are specifically wanted to be developed during classes, right? And the rest are just, you know, soft skills which are pleasure to be developed during classes. So the red ones are those we, as teachers, mainly focus on. Okay, and here are some photos from our lesson, and it was really a pleasure. So now I would like us to stop and think. If you have any questions to that what I've presented, we have time to right now to state them. Like, you know, 2-3 minutes if you need to ask anything right now.
If I can join you for a moment. What we want to achieve today is to show you that using critical thinking, let's say, concept and critical thinking tools, you can still do both. Let's say normal, let's say typical English lesson, but also develop critical thinking as a skill. But actually using critical thinking tools, you develop both things much faster, much deeper.
Yeah, the lesson was 90 minutes, yes, because I've got blocks of lessons with one class. So yes, that's why we had so much time for this heated discussion and going through so many tools, right? But it's not necessary to go through so many at once, right? But here I had this great opportunity to do so.
Okay, maybe let's do like this. The Kasia will continue presentation about now grammar to show you that it's also possible to use in the, let's say, grammar area. And I will answer any of your comments, questions, okay? And then from the can occur. Okay. Okay, I will try to answer, and Kasia, because we will not have time to...
Yes, and Monica, we will answer your question in a moment, okay? With this individual classes, okay? I will move to that in a moment. So yes, that was first was listening, watching, and writing, speaking skills. So now I would like to show you how to use it for grammar, right? So I've got this lovely routine for grammar: parts, purposes, and complexities, right? My aim was to revise narrative tenses with my class, okay? And what I asked them to do is to work in groups. So they were working in groups of 3, and their aim was to analyze the system. The system was narrative tenses, as I mentioned. And first thing they had to do was to state the parts of a system, right? And here the parts are past simple, past continuous, past perfect, continuous, right? So that was the first step. Next, their task was to identify purposes of each part of the system, right? So here they were supposed to just state what do we use these tenses, in what situations do we use these tenses. right? So next was to find complexities. Complexities, so the relation between those mentioned parts of a system, right? And here I've got the example only of one complexity, right? So past simple as a sudden action and interrupting action, and past continuous, longer action, background, interrupted action, right? So this is how they cooperate in one sentence, right? Given in one sentence. So that's one of the complexities found by my students. And here is the example, right, of how they did it, right? So first we've got, yes, stated parts with purposes, each part with purpose. And then we've got, beneath, we've got those complexities, okay? So this part, purposes, complexities was used for identifying parts of a system, right? So here I just wanted them to go back to their knowledge, previous knowledge, and revise narrative tenses, right? And then I wanted them to state their purposes, so they revised when to use each past tense, right? And to understand, that the aim was to understand the relation, right, between the tenses, how they coexist, work together, right, in one sentence, in a text, in narrative. So they had a lot of things to take into consideration. And later on, I asked some questions. So, what would you do if there was no past simple? How would you deal with that? Or past perfect, right? Is it possible to write a narrative without past simple, without past perfect, past continuous? How to deal with it, right? So I made them think deeper. Okay, and here are, and that lesson, that part of a lesson, that revision, took 20 minutes. So my students had 20 minutes to prepare it. And later on, we had some time for presentation. And during the presentation, they were, discussing, and they were also questioning, groups, right, were questioning each other. So we went through tenses together, right? And we came up with this full view of the narrative, full revision of it. Okay, and here is also the example of how to compare two tenses, right? So this is double bubble, and here we've got present simple and past simple compared, right? And in between we've got those common parts for these tenses, and on the sides specific for one, right? So on the left we've got those characteristics specific for present simple, and on the right for past simple. The same with present continuous and past continuous, and we can, do it with a lot of options, different options. Okay, so it is also possible, and it is quite pleasant to work on grammar with routines. Okay. And here I would love to show you that these are really universal tools, right? And the application is really universal. And to emphasize that learning is determined by thinking, right? So we can use routines to work with teams, right? And it can be a team of 4 or team of 16 people, right? While this work we develop 4 C's, right? So critical thinking, cooperation, communication, creativity, right? Working as a group. The best what can happen here is that the student teaches from the student, right? So that is the best environment we can really provide to our students, that they can learn from each other. We use group intelligence to create new knowledge, right? So they use their prior knowledge, so they make connections, which is really important, right? when we want them to understand and to remember better. Okay. We come with a faster curriculum delivery, thanks to that, because thinking routines are really short tools, right? We do not need much time, and we get really good effects, fast effects, and fast thinking. We get more commitment, motivation, energy from the participants, because each participant is really engaged in that, right? There's a lot of fun, and you know, when there's fun, there's better understanding and remembering, right? And we are building a nice relation with our students, so it also increases their motivation. So you can see the participants thinking better, and that makes the process management better. So you can see their strengths and weaknesses, and you can help them by asking questions, right? This guiding through questions is really important. So we're not giving them answers, we're just giving them right questions in the right moment. Okay, so this is for working with a group, and I move quickly to individual work, right? Here we can only, let's say only, develop freezes, right? Because cooperation is quite impossible, but critical thinking, communication, and creativity are well developed here. We've got deeper, better quality of relationships, right? So it's easier to build this good relationship with individual student. You see the students thinking and can spot their weaknesses, difficulties, strengths really easily in the process. You've got more opportunities for in-depth conversations, more resources to define your position. So it's, you know, more fruitful, definitely. Security, what do we mean by that? It's when you create more resources, so you state your ideas, you organize your thoughts by routines, then it's easier to communicate them, right? So when a student is well prepared and his or her thoughts are organized by the routine, it's easier to speak, right? And there's no blockage, right? And saying, I don't know, I have no idea, right? It's more efficient thought process, and we've got faster results. And we work in the tutor-tutee relationship, right? So it helps a lot, the process. There's more trust and guidance. And this guidance is, of course, through questions, right? So that's the key. That's the quintessential part, asking questions. Okay? So what I want to say more is that routines are great when we work in our classrooms, and they're great fun then, but they work really well also online. We have worked whole year online, working just, you know, on our breakout rooms, and creating really great ideas and things with our students through routines online. So as you can see, they are quite universal, really, and the application is universal also. So thank you, Matej. Now you, I think, yes.
But we have just, I think, enough time to, let's say, of course, to present you to some, to invite you. Mm-hmm. But I see that we have enough time that if there are any questions according to the subject, theme, routines, if you have any questions, please write them down now, and Kasia will answer now. She will be responsible now for the chat room. But again, I will some kind of like summary. We use critical thinking tools, routines and critical thinking tools to deal with the subject, to deal with the curriculum, and let's say parallel, we develop critical thinking. The issue is that if you have proper tools, you can do both things. And again, with the thinking routines, there are no correct answer. So students, if they are 10 years old or 50 years old or 60 years old, they very quickly recognize that there are no correct answer. It's about their thinking and it's not about their knowledge. So if you feel secure, you actually start to open up for discussions, for thinking, for sharing, etc. And all the, let's say, work during the lesson is done in the teams, teams of 3 to 5, let's say, depends how many people you have in the classroom. In your, let's say, even in the business, you also work with the teams. So it's, you give with it, using the critical thinking routines, you give opportunity that students start to work, discuss, cooperate much faster, much easier. And it's not about that I'm missing some vocabulary, so I will not be able to think. Of course, if you start completing new vocabulary, you can prepare earlier any material to introduce new vocabulary. But what we see after this many years of experience with critical thinking, let's say in the English lesson, is that it's about I don't know what to do. It's more about I don't know what to think about it. I don't understand the subject. That's why it's difficult for me to give the answer. It's not about language. It's more about thinking. So using this method, you help children, you help adults to think. And then it's much easier to learn language in this. And it doesn't matter what kind of language is, the English, Spanish, whatever. It's about thinking. But as I show you at the beginning of our presentation, that the learning is the outcome of thinking. So our task as educators, teachers, lecturers is to create the environment when there is a lot of opportunity to think. First to think, and then it creates learning. So please give us any questions, any comments, any ideas, and I will show you how can you start this journey with critical thinking and with these tools, if this, let's say, attitude.
And I would like to tell you that, the most wonderful effect of that is that when you finish the lesson, and no matter if it's 45 minutes or 90, all your students are so vivid, they're full of energy. Their minds are quite tired because the process of thinking was quite deep and intense. Yes, so they are quite tired, but happy. Happy first of all because they were heard, because all their ideas were listened to, and they also listen to each other, right, actively, because they want to communicate, they want to question. They start, listening to each other so patiently, and they want to find some things they would love to question, right? Just to show they do not agree or they agree with others, right? And that is the most amazing thing about it.
Okay, so I will show you now our invitation to you, to all of you, is that we want to, our job is to train the teachers all over Poland, and doesn't matter where are you, who are your clients, is it adults or are they students or children? Actually, it's really doesn't matter. All the thinking routines are universal, as I mentioned, never too early, never too old to play with them, to use them. So what we offer is for you is to do the training with us, and the group is minimum 12 people because there has to be a lot of interactions, a lot of working groups. So that's why at least 12 people, maximum 20. All the training is done by the workshops, working the breakout rooms if we do online. If it's possible also to do it in Warsaw, for example, in your learning center, we can do it also normally, let's say, ordinary work. But if not, if it's online, we work on the workshops using breakout rooms. So every time you are learning new routines, you use it in the context of any curriculum, and with the team on the breakout room, you just develop thinking, understanding, etc. Then what we see that the most, let's say, efficient way of training is to have, let's say, 2 meetings. Each one is 3 hours. And then you have, let's say, group has at least 1 month to practice, let's say, thinking routines which you were be given in the trainings. So then you practice for 1 month, and there is another meeting. First is evaluation, what was okay, what was correct, what was not correct, what was successful, why it wasn't successful, all this, let's say, evaluation process. And then new material. So we have experienced that this way of delivering this culture and this methodology is the most crucial, efficient. During this training, we will teach you, let's say, create the environment that you will learn at least 6 to 8 thinking routines. This varies because it depends on the dynamic, it depends on the, let's say, deeper thinking and deeper questions. So at least 6, sometimes it's 8, sometimes it could be even 10. It's more connected with the process which is ongoing than, let's say, very specific curriculum of the training. But at least 6 to 8 thinking routines you will learn during this training. Our price is 499 zloty for these 2 meetings, this 6 hours training. But in the price you will have include also, because we have our own learning platform, and we have already during these 2 years of this project and thousands of teachers and hundreds of trainers, we created a lot of resources. So you will have access to our resources connected, of course, with English lessons, English language. So there are webinars, there are PDFs, there are inspirations, tutorials. So all this is included in the price. And we want to start our training from January, because now it's almost the end of the year and we're busy, and for sure you are also busy. This is the very busy time for all the trainings, learning, etc. So from January, that would be, let's say, the moment we want to start this training. And first day will be 12th of January, and then in the group you will decide when exactly, let's say at least 1 month, but when exactly will be the second meeting that will be set by the group, with the group. So that was invitation for us, from you, let's say, from us to you, to start the journey. Critical thinking is really amazing journey, because this is a lot of material, a lot of knowledge, a lot of methodology. It is not something, let's say, shallow, which you will some kind of acquire during 3 to 6 months, and that's it. This is the work which can last 10 years, 15 years, and you will never say it's the end. The material from the Project Zero and the other, let's say, companies and organization which, let's say, develops critical thinking in the education, it's huge. It's a lot. And as I mentioned, we have the program for the schools for 4 years of implementation. And we have, let's say, at least 200 hours of materials to share. So it's many, many years of development, but we can both assure you that this is one of the most amazing areas to be developed, and some kind of like eureka that, wow, I have something which is amazing for my students. I work less, but as a teacher, but my results are much, much higher, better, faster, deeper. So that's it from us. We finished like 5 minutes till the end. This is a mail to Kasia. If you have any questions, we will send you tomorrow this recording. So it's not a problem for you that you will just watch it a few times and you stop it, pause it whenever you want, you need. And here is the mail to Kasia. If you have any questions, any ideas, any proposals, please just contact her directly. And this is our website. Unfortunately, it's only in Polish at this moment, but here you can just read about our, let's say, critical thinking, our trainings, not only English, but other different. So this is the resources you can, let's say, source of reading for you. So that's it for us. But if you have any questions, we have like still 5 minutes. So please comment, ask us anything you need to have better understanding of the process of all the concept.
Yeah, I realize that I haven't told about the biggest benefit for a teacher here. or lecturer. The biggest benefit is that, you know, you just stand and observe your students thinking, right? And then you just listen to their effects of thinking, and you can understand them much better. So this is the biggest benefit for me and the biggest pleasure.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much. So, of course, this is the topic which is probably a bit new for you. So please talk between you in your team. Is it could be beneficial for individuals or all your team of the trainers, how you could use it. One maybe thing which, Kasia, I think we didn't mention as well. It's not about adding to your current work, current method, something which is, let's say, taking your time. And that's because very often the first, let's say, claim from the teachers when they see it, they said, I will not have time for this. So it is not about adding, it's more about replacing. And Kasia mentioned that thinking routines are very quickly. You do them with students with 5, 7, 3 minutes. So actually you add 2 or 3 thinking routines during your normal standard, let's say, lesson, and you will have completely new results, new, let's say, attitude from the students. So it's not about adding, it's more about being efficient and replacing something which was more focused on my teaching, and here creating the environment when the students are learning and teacher is become moderator and just observing the process.
Indeed.
Okay, so I see that somebody's still writing, so we can wait. Thanks for the presentation. It was really interesting. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Cesare is writing also. Okay, and remember that you can always email me and ask any questions you've got, right?
Elementary level.
It works well with them too, and you know, the effects are, I would say, even more amazing. You can check the relations from our teachers' lessons, right, on our page, on our Facebook, and they show how it works with small children. Because, you know, small children are even better critical thinkers than we are.
Okay. And John is writing. Maybe we'll wait. Maybe I will just add one comment and some kind of difference. This is not the engaging, let's say, methods to make students, let's say, be active, be engaged. Here, everything is focused on make students to think. A lot of these routines are very engaging, physically, let's say, kinesthetically engaging, but all the purpose, all the goal is to make them think. So it's not, let's say, new gadgets on the market. It's completely different approach. It's nothing what you probably tried before and use the methods, because majority of methods on the education market is about making engagement, motivate. Here is completely different approach. We are focused on the thinking to make students to think, and it opens completely new doors. Okay, it's 2:00, so I think that we will be finishing. I will stop the recording. So tomorrow I will send you the link to